What do you see? Now what do you see? Your answer to the first question, probably a normal high school female, maybe even considered her race. Your answer to the second question, considering the state and city we live in, many of us being raised in the heart of Montgomery County, the answer to the second question probably did not differ much from the first, the only obvious difference being that we now have a reason to assume she is a Muslim. Now imagine you are a white male Southerner. How much did your answer change between the first and second questions? Most of us probably reverted straight to stereotypes, assuming that a white Southerner would not think much of the subject with her hair exposed, but would almost immediately assume the student is a threat when she covered herself with a hijab. However, even that prompted shift in perspective is indicative of our own preconceived stereotypes of this group. Even in this nation, so-called the United Free Land, there are divisions within our own borders. In this country that represents a melting pot of various cultures, we as a nation seem to struggle to achieve balance and acceptance of all people. Comparing the values and perspectives of New England and the South can sometimes almost be misconstrued as a comparison between two nations with two polar opposite forms of governing. So, how do these regional perceptions evolve? The obvious answer is history. In all regions, depending on how communities were raised and which laws were accepted and respected, stigmas, in fact all ideals, may often be taught but undoubtedly influenced by environment. However, more recently, widespread acceptance of a point of view can be credited to the media. By strategically manipulating the facts and the image of a person or group, the media is able to essentially control the general opinion. This brings me to the real question. To what extent do stigmas affect people's perception and acceptance of others? Furthermore, can or do these generalizations supersede or cloud our ways of knowing? If so, which way of knowing is most influenced? The following, as we all recognize, are the ways of knowing. In order to conclusively determine an answer, I will investigate each and analyze how they may be influenced by these preconceived stigmas.
Anyone people in Mocha used to give him.
Language could be used to communicate ideas and opinions regarding these stereotypes, but I do not believe language itself is the primary target. With stereotypes come slang and derogatory expressions that are used to classify and devalue certain types of people. These words are what ultimately circulate and nationalize the stigma, allowing more people to be aware of them and utilize this new knowledge willingly. However, language itself is not being affected, but rather it is a catalyst that communicates and spreads these ideas. Sense perception is defined as understanding gained through the use of sight, taste, touch, hearing, or smell. The two I will discuss are sight and hearing, as the circulation of media is primarily associated with these. The understanding that is gained by sight and ear in this context is always artificial. When one hears about something from the media, it has inevitably been imposed with the bias of the publisher. However, a person's sense perception could undoubtedly be influenced by stigmas and stereotypes, because although they may physically see or hear about an event the same way as another person, processing that knowledge for them will be influenced by these imposed beliefs. Emotion refers to an instinctive feeling as distinguished from reasoning or knowledge. Stigmas and stereotypes not only target the emotions of the group they deem to classify, but simultaneously influence the emotions of the rest of the public. When a stigma circulates with its supposed evidence, it challenges the emotions and previous perceptions of all people, providing knowledge that either feed or refute their previous beliefs. Because stigmas specifically intend to devalue people of certain groups, these negative remarks are utilized to redirect or question original assumptions. Now, reason directly correlates with emotion in that emotion often influences reason. Therefore, as the spread of a stigma affects emotion, they also sway reason. People begin to utilize these stigmas as their justification for their beliefs, imposing a strict, closed minded association between the negative classifications and the targeted group. Instead of using pure reason to judge these people, stigma often becomes the impulse and primary influence to their reaction. Imagination, in my opinion, is not as strong as the other ways of knowing, as it is defined as the faculty or action of forming new ideas, images, or concepts of external objects not present to the senses. The connection to stigmas would be in relation to the scope of a person's imagination. By first hearing about or being emotionally affected by a stigma, can a person further imagine plausible circumstances and derive conclusions given the knowledge of the stereotype? In other words, stigmas influence imagination only in that they broaden the person's perspective, allowing them to later expand on the given generalization. However, one can approach this from the opposite perspective and argue that stigmas often stem from imagination or exaggerated, fancied circumstances. Regardless, stigmas do not have as large of an impact on imagination as it does on emotion and reason. Faith is regarded as complete trust or confidence in someone or something, and I believe stigmas do influence faith in that they prompt people to question their faith in a person or group. As negative, degrading word about a certain group becomes globalized, many may hesitate to put faith or keep their faith in a person of that background. In this case, stereotyping primarily affects human relationships, imposing distrust and coldness, and less a person's gaining of knowledge through faith.
You know what's invaluable? Is intuition. You know what that is? That is the ability to know when something is about to happen. Does anybody out there have intuition? Know what's going to happen next? Nobody? Okay. You're going to make me say it.
Intuition, in relation to stigmas, has a chance of being skewed in the same way as reason and imagination, in that people may become hyper aware of their surroundings and the people they face day to day. They may believe, due to what they have heard about a person's background, that they know the person will act in some fashion or they know something will occur because it's associated with some group. It will start with conscious reasoning, but over time, the person will know instinctively to avoid a Muslim at an airport. Intuition in this context is a bit gray because it really deals with the development of a person's perspective and intake of knowledge. Lastly, memory. Because memory is knowledge gained from past experiences. Unless those past experiences were influenced or are recalled with the presence of a stigma, it is not affected much. One can reflect on such memories to develop their perspective in whatever form, but memory as a way of knowing is not the primary target. In conclusion, stigmas primarily target emotion and reason as they are specifically formed to challenge the public's previous beliefs and create some common enemy. Oftentimes, these, as well as other ideas promoted by the media, are able to supersede or at least skew our ways of knowing. Stigmas affect perception and a person's ability to accept others to the extent to which the person is able to disregard said stigmas and judge the person as they would any other.